Picture two of our distant ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago sitting by a fire. One of them watches their partner share a long, easy laugh with someone across the flames. A little too long, a little too easy. And in that moment, something lights up inside them. A heat in the chest, a tightening in the gut, a sudden, sharp, almost unbearable need to do something. To step in to say something. To step in to not just sit here and let this happen. They couldn't have named it. There was no word for it yet. There may not have been many words at all, but you would recognize it instantly because you have felt the exact same thing, that identical twist, firing in the exact same place in your body for the exact same reason, tens of thousands of years apart, and the feeling is completely unchanged jealousy. That hot, sick, twisting thing that shows up when someone you love turns towards someone else. Or when a friend gets the thing you wanted and something ugly stirs in you that you're a little ashamed of. We treat it as a personal flaw, a defect, something small and petty that we're supposed to be better than. But that is not what it is, not even close. So here is the question for today. When did this feeling actually begin? When did a living creature first feel that particular fire? And why, after all this time, is it still burning in every single one of us? The answer reaches back much, much further than you'd ever guess. And it completely changes what this painful, embarrassing emotion actually means. So stick with me. Let's start by throwing out the idea that jealousy is some modern weakness, a petty habit we picked up, a flaw in our character we're supposed to outgrow. Because the first thing you need to understand is that jealousy is not unique to humans. Watch a dog whose owner starts petting another dog, or even fussing over a stuffed animal that barks. The dog will often push between them, nudge the rival away, paw at the owner, visibly agitated. Researchers have actually tested this in controlled experiments and found that dogs really do show jealous-type behavior, specifically when their owner gives affection to what looks like another dog, far more than when the owner pays attention to a neutral object. Anyone who has ever lived with dogs already knew this in their bones, but now it is measured. Go further up the family tree, to monkeys, and it gets even sharper. There is a famous experiment with capuchin monkeys run by primate researchers studying how animals respond to unfairness. Two monkeys are placed side by side in separate cages where they can see each other and given the same simple task, handing a small stone back to a researcher. For doing it, one monkey gets a piece of cucumber. Fine, acceptable, a perfectly good treat. And the monkey happily eats it over and over, until it sees the monkey next door get a grape for the very same task, a grape, which to a capuchin is far more delicious than cucumber, and the moment the first monkey sees that the other got something better for the same work, it loses it. It throws the cucumber back at the researcher. Sometimes hurling it right out of the cage, it shakes the bars. It slaps the surface in front of it. It refuses indignantly to keep playing the game. The footage of this is genuinely funny, and it has been watched by millions of people, precisely because the monkey's outrage is so instantly recognizable. We have all felt exactly that. The reaction isn't really about the cucumber, which was perfectly fine a moment ago. It is about the comparison. The sight of another getting more, for no better reason, triggers something powerful and immediate and ancient, and capuchins are not even that closely related to us, which means this sensitivity to who got what is old, far older than the primate line that led to humans. And here is maybe the most telling evidence of all. Human babies. Infants just a few months old, long before they can speak, long before they can reason, long before anyone could possibly have taught them, show signs of jealousy. When researchers had mothers turn their attention to a lifelike doll, cradling it and cooing at it, their babies became visibly distressed and tried to get between the mother and the doll, far more than when the mother gave the same attention to a non-social object like a book. These are children too young to have learned anything about rivalry or possession. The feeling was simply there, pre-installed. Waiting, put all of that together, and you arrive at something genuinely profound. Jealousy is not learned. It is not a product of civilization or modern relationships or social media or any of the things we like to blame. It is built in. It comes preloaded into the machinery of the mind, before culture, before conscious thought itself. Which means it is old, far older than our species. So let's actually try to trace it back. When did it begin? And the honest answer is that jealousy doesn't have a single birthday. It wasn't invented in one moment. It is more like a feeling that was assembled layer by layer across an almost unimaginable stretch of time, because at every step it was useful. It kept getting passed down because the creatures who felt it survived and reproduced better than the creatures who didn't. To understand when jealousy began, you have to understand what it was actually for. And it turns out it was doing several different life or death jobs at once. The first and most obvious job is the one from our firelit scene. Guarding a mate. Here is the cold evolutionary logic, and it isn't romantic, but it is powerful. For an animal that invests heavily in raising its young, and humans invest more than almost any creature alive, the stakes of a partnership are enormous. Think about what it took to raise a human child in the ancient world. Years and years of feeding, caring, protecting, teaching. It was a colossal investment, and it went far better with two committed partners than with one. So anything that threatened that partnership, a rival moving in, a partner's attention drifting away, was a direct threat to an ancestor's entire genetic future. The children they'd invested everything in could lose a parent's support. The energy they'd poured into a bond could be stolen by a competitor. And so evolution did what it always does with a serious recurring threat. It built an alarm. Jealousy is that alarm, that twisting, painful, attention-seizing feeling exists precisely because the thing it is guarding mattered so much. The ancestor who felt nothing when a rival circled their partner was the ancestor more likely to lose that partner, and with them, the future of their children. The ancestor who felt that hot stab of jealousy and acted on it, who paid attention, who competed, who held on, was more likely to keep the bond intact and the children fed. We are descended from the ones who felt it. The jealousy you carry is, in a real sense, a gift from ancestors who would have lost everything without it. And there is a fascinating wrinkle here that researchers have studied for decades. The threat of losing a partner wasn't quite the same for everyone, and evolution seems to have tuned jealousy accordingly. For one partner, the deepest danger was the bond itself drifting away, the partner's care, protection, and provision being redirected to someone else, leaving them and their children unsupported. For the other, there was an additional, brutal evolutionary risk, investing years of effort raising a child that might not even carry their genes. These are uncomfortable, unromantic calculations, and no ancestor ever consciously did this math. They didn't have to. The feeling did the math for them. Evolution doesn't need you to understand why something matters. It just needs the ones who feel the alarm to outsurvive the ones who don't. And so the alarm got passed down generation after generation, growing more refined until it arrived, fully formed and burning. And this is also, by the way, why jealousy hurts as much as it does. We tend to think pain is a malfunction, a sign something has gone wrong. But emotional pain is a feature, not a bug. It hurts precisely so that you cannot ignore it. A mild, pleasant nudge would be easy to brush aside, and an ancestor who could easily brush aside the threat of losing their partner or their place was an ancestor who lost them. The agony of jealousy is the measure of how much the thing it guards once mattered to survival. It was designed to be unbearable because bearable warnings get ignored. But mate guarding is only one of jealousy's jobs. There is a second, broader one. Protecting resources. In the ancient world of scarcity, what others had directly affected whether you survived. If a member of your group was hoarding food, monopolizing a tool, or getting more than their fair share of something vital, that wasn't just annoying. It could be the difference between your children eating and going hungry. So our ancestors evolved a finely tuned sensitivity to who has what, a built-in radar for unfairness and inequality. That capuchin monkey throwing its cucumber is running the same ancient program. The sharp discomfort we feel when someone else gets more than us, when the distribution seems unfair, when a rival is pulling ahead, that is jealousy in its resource-guarding form, and it was once a crucial tool for making sure you didn't get quietly left behind while others took more than their share. And notice how double-edged this one is. The same sensitivity to unfairness that makes us feel jealous also makes us care about justice. The instinct that flares when someone else gets more than they deserve is the very same instinct that pointed outward, makes us furious on behalf of others who are being cheated, or deep human sense of fairness. The thing that powers our outrage at cheaters or insistence on sharing, our discomfort with unearned advantage, grows from the same root as petty jealousy. They are two faces of one ancient adaptation, a mind that keeps careful, constant track of who has what and protests when the balance feels wrong. The feeling that can make us small and envious is remarkably the same feeling that can make us demand a fairer world. And there is a third job subtler than the others, but just as important, tracking your place in the group. We've talked before on this channel about how much survival depended on your standing in a small band. Your status, your alliances, your relationships, these were the invisible structures that kept you alive. So our ancestors needed a way to monitor those structures constantly, to notice when a friend's loyalty was drifting towards someone else, when their own position was slipping, when a rival was rising. Jealousy is part of that monitoring system. That pang you feel when your close friend seems to prefer someone else's company, when you're subtly being replaced, when your spot in someone's life is being taken, that is an ancient social alarm, alerting you that a relationship you depend on might be in danger. This shades into a close cousin of jealousy that is worth naming: envy. Strictly speaking, jealousy is the fear of losing something you have to a rival, while envy is the ache of wanting something someone else has. But they grow from the same ancient root, and they did related jobs. Because envy, that sharp awareness of someone else having more, wasn't only painful, it was motivating. The ancestor who saw a rival with a better tool, a richer territory, a higher standing, and felt that gnawing pull was driven to go and get those things too. To improve, to compete, to climb. In a world where falling behind could be fatal, the discomfort of seeing others ahead of you was a goad that kept you striving. Painful, yes, but the pain had a purpose. It pushed our ancestors to not simply accept a lower place when a better one was possible. A great deal of human ambition, human effort, human reaching for more, traces back to this restless, comparing, envious eye, which is why it has never left us, and why every advertisement ever made is quietly trying to trigger it. So now we can answer the question, at least as well as it can be answered. When did humans first start feeling jealous? The truth is, we never started because we inherited it already running. The flickers of it stretch back through our primate relatives, through the mammals before them, woven deeper and deeper into the nervous system. The further back you go. By the time anything we'd call human existed, jealousy was already ancient, already installed, already doing its work. We didn't invent jealousy any more than we invented hunger or fear. We were born into it, the latest in an unbroken line of creatures who felt that particular fire and survived because they did. If you really wanted to point to a beginning, you'd have to go back not thousands or even millions, but tens of millions of years, to the deep mammalian past when creatures first began forming the kinds of bonds and rivalries that jealousy exists to manage. The capacity was there in our ancestors long before they walked upright, long before they made tools, long before they were anything we would recognize as kin. What changed as we became human wasn't the feeling itself, it was everything we layered on top of it. Language to name it, stories to dramatize it, rules to govern it, art to express it. The raw emotion is staggeringly old. The human experience of it, all the poetry and tragedy and song we've wrapped around that ancient twist, is the only part that is new. And here is the part nobody tells you, the part that I think can genuinely change your relationship with this feeling. For almost the entire history of life, all of this worked. The jealousy alarm was well matched to the world it evolved in a small, stable group, a handful of relationships that genuinely were matters of life and death, a world where a rival really could cost you your partner, your food, your place, your children's future. In that world, jealousy was a faithful servant. It pointed at real threats and pushed you to protect what truly mattered. And then the world changed far faster than evolution could follow. Now you live in a world of billions of people. A world where you see every single day an endless stream of others who have more beauty, more success, more love, more of everything, most of whom you will never meet and who pose no actual threat to you at all. Your ancient jealousy alarm, built for a band of 30, is now firing at a planet of strangers on a glowing screen. It evolved to track a few crucial rivals. Now it is drowning in 1,000 false alarms a day. The feeling is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is just doing it in a world it was never designed for. Think about how perfectly, almost cruelly, mismatched this is. For your ancestors, the only people you ever compared yourself to were the handful in your own band. And roughly speaking, you were all in the same boat, living the same lives with the same things. The comparisons were manageable and they were real. But now you scroll past the most beautiful, the most successful, the most envied people on the entire planet, handpicked and filtered and polished, hundreds of them, before you've even had breakfast. Your comparison machinery, the ancient eye that evolved to glance around a campfire of 30 familiar faces, is being asked to process the highlight reels of all of humanity at once. Of course it overloads. Of course it leaves people feeling perpetually behind, perpetually lacking, perpetually outdone. It is not that something is wrong with us. It is that a Stone Age alarm system has been plugged into an input it could never have been built to handle. The machinery is fine. The world is the strange part. So if you have ever felt ashamed of your own jealousy, if you've ever wondered why you can't just be happy for people, why that ugly twist shows up even when you don't want it to, why a feeling you intellectually reject still grips you so hard, here is the truth, and I want you to hear it gently. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not petty, and you are not broken. You are carrying an ancient, powerful, deeply human alarm system, one that kept every single one of your ancestors and their children alive, and it is simply firing in a world that overwhelms it. The jealousy isn't a character flaw, it is a signal, a very old one, telling you that something you care about feels threatened, and once you can hear it that way, as information rather than as shame, it loses a great deal of its power over you. Because that is what jealousy really is underneath all the pain. It is a measure of what you care about. You don't feel it about things that don't matter to you. That hot twist only ever shows up around the people, the bonds, the hopes you're most afraid to lose. It is in its strange and painful way, a map of your own heart, pointing every time at what you treasure most. So let's go back to those two ancestors by the fire, one of them watching the other laugh a little too easily across the flames, feeling that nameless heat rise in their chest for the very first time. They didn't have a word for it. They didn't know it was an inheritance hundreds of thousands of years in the making, or that it would still be burning, unchanged, in a descendant staring at a screen in a world they could never imagine. That something they cared about felt at risk, and that the feeling demanded they pay attention. And in that, they were exactly like you across all that time, all those generations, all that unimaginable distance. The fire is the same fire. When you feel that ancient twist, you are not failing. You are feeling the echo of every ancestor who ever loved something enough to fear losing it, which is to say, you are feeling something profoundly, unbreakably human. So here is my question for you, and I really do want to know now that you know what jealousy actually is, an ancient alarm, a signal of what you care about most. Does it change how you feel about it? The next time that old fire rises in your chest, do you think you can hear it differently? Let me know in the comments, I read them. And your honesty about things like this is always the best part. Until then, take care of yourselves and of each other, and I'll see you soon.